SRIRAM's IS, serving the nation since 1985. Ab offline, hoya online, we are the lifeline.
Hello students, welcome to SRIRAM's IS. I am Mayank Bharadwaj and presenting you another class of our current affairs series for Prelims 2025. This series is going to help you a lot in preparation of your current affairs. So another issue has came up and let us study that issue, which is very important for you to understand. It relates to President's Rule, Article 356 of the Constitution. 11th time Manipur is under the President rule. This is the most an Indian state has been under the President rule in the history of India. It has been imposed for around 10 times in UP, and it was 10 times in Manipur also. But this one, the present President rule, which has been imposed few days back, is the 11th time it has been imposed. In total, President rule has been imposed for more than 135 times in India now. So it is very important as far as the examination go. It's very important for us to understand why such circumstances come up when the machinery, the constitutional machinery of a state breaks down, that the president has to impose the president rule. And of course, this has been used as a political tool also, but not in the present case, because there has been violence. And this was the news of Indian Express. If you see, president rule imposed in Manipur. So why the president rule was imposed? So to understand a context, CM N. Biren Singh, he was the chief minister of Manipur. He has resigned because of several reasons. We will understand what those reasons were. Failure to find a consensus CM candidate led to the leadership crisis in Manipur. Now, why the consensus needs to be made? That is something we have to understand. So there has been ethnic violence going on in Manipur since May 2023. Conflict between Meitei. Now these are two important tribes of Manipur which we have to understand. We will understand their political standing, we will understand their geographical standing, we will understand what are the issues between these two communities. And Kuki. So Meiteis and Kuki, these are usually the scheduled tribes living in hills. Meiteis are not scheduled tribes, but these are majorly Hindus living in the plain region. These are majorly Christians. But never forget, all are Indians here. So what is the issue here? We have to understand. Predominantly Hindus, Meiteis are predominantly Hindu, reside in the Imphal Valley, which is the sort of a area surrounded by hills. Kukis, mostly Christians, live in the hills. So this violence has killed over 250 people and 60,000 plus people are displaced from different areas. So before coming to the provisions of the constitutional mechanism of president rule, let us understand the crisis first. Now if you see Manipur, imagine a stadium. This is a cricket stadium or a hockey stadium or a football stadium, whichever stadium you would like to or you would have visited, and around it is this bigger, this is the field where the game is played, and this is where the people sit. It's long, big, people can watch from a height. The game is going on down there, so you can imagine. So Manipur, just imagine Manipur is of the same geographical calculation. So this area is called the Imphal Valley. In between, this is the Imphal Valley where the Meiteis are living. So this area is about 10% of the total area of Manipur, and Meiteis constitute for about 60% of the population. Okay. Meiteis are 60% of the population, whereas these hills area, two tribes are living, majorly two tribes, Kukis and Nagas. Okay, now in the present situation, Nagas are neutral, but it is Kukis which are fighting against Maithis and vice versa. So what happens in the hill areas? These tribes are scheduled tribes. They live in 90% of the area of Manipur, having a population of around 40%. Okay, now look at the political representation. Manipur has seats of 60 MLAs in the Legislative Assembly. Out of these 60 MLAs, 40 MLA belongs to Maithis and around 20 MLAs belong to the hill tribes. Okay, so there has been this political misrepresentation which is always pointed out by the hill tribes. They are saying now that we and our population has increased over a period of time and the present census does not reflect it truly, and their seat needs to be increased in the Legislative Assembly. Beside, another issue has came up, another issue that the High Court of Manipur has sort of ordered the state government to implement a 10-year-old recommendation of putting Maithis, these people who live in the 10% area with 60% population having 40 seats out of the 60 in the Legislative Assembly. The recommendation is to declare Maithis as STs. Now, state is a model employer. The maximum number of jobs which are created in Manipur are by the state. Okay. So, there is a lot of insecurities in the hill tribes that if Maithis come under the scheduled tribe category, they are going to take over the jobs of these Kuki people. Then it will be a problem. It will be a major problem. This was sort of the basis of the whole why this ethnic violence started. Declaring Maithis as the scheduled tribes. This was a age-old recommendation which the High Court has ordered to be implemented by the state government. Now, how to somebody gets added in the list of the scheduled caste? Under Article 341, this is for the scheduled caste, and Article 342 for the scheduled tribe. The president is empowered to do so. So state recommends, it reaches to the registrar general, then it goes to the cabinet and the approval happens from the home ministry, and after all that process, finally under Article 342, it is the power of the president to include any particular tribe in the list of scheduled tribes of that particular state. So this is the process of inclusion of scheduled tribes in the list. So recently, with all this tension happening, Kuki started calling Maithi as the people who are dominating the whole Manipur. Kuki started calling the administrations as Maithi administration and police as Maithi police. So the clashes started to happen, and because of this clashes, Biren Singh have resigned. Okay, because he was seen as a Maithi leader who was working only for the Maithi tribes and not for the hill tribe. So he has to resign, and after his resignation, a precedent rule has been imposed, and now the neutrality has been shown by the Indian government by sending army, because there are also problems happening here. There are rebel groups from both the tribes which are fighting each other. So the government needs to and the army needs to suppress both of them in order to restore peace in Manipur. That becomes a very important issue here. So this is the issue of scheduled tribe. If Maithis are included, Kukis are insecure about their jobs, and the recent violence was also erupted because several volunteers in the villages were attacked. In some of the tribes, these villagers are there who protect themselves. They were attacked by another group, and this is what is required in a war-torn area, that if one small soldier is attacked by another person's tribe or army, the violence starts. So the bigger area The basic area is the differences, the more political sort of tug war between Meiteis and Kukis in this area. These are hill tribes. Meiteis are living in the Imphal Valley, which is sort of the political basis of Manipur. So this is the political composition, geographical composition of the whole situation. Now coming to our important slide which will help you in your prelims examination, let us understand what is Article 356. So emergency is imposed in India. The provisions of emergency has been given under Part 18 of the Constitution. Three kind of emergencies are there under Article 352, under Article 356 and under Article 360. So this is proclamation of emergency under Article 352. And under Article 356, it's the President rule or constitutional emergency also. And under Article 360, financial emergency, which has never been imposed in India till now. So President can impose a rule under Article 356. Here what we are studying is Article 356 because this has been imposed in Manipur. States constitutional machinery fail. Now this is the basis. The governor sends the report to the president that the machinery of the state has failed. The constitutional machinery has failed and it cannot be repaired as of now, and that is the reason why this failure needs to be replaced by the president rule. That simply means the center government gets the overarching power over the executive and the legislature of the state. The laws are executed by the center, the laws are made by the center. The assembly either can be suspended or can be dissolved. Whatever needs to be done by the president is done with the consultation of the governor of the state. So it's a very strong provision which also reflects the centralizing tendency of the Indian constitution, that in situations like emergency, our constitution or our country becomes more of a unified, unitary feature, shows more strongly. Okay, it's not the federal structure or the federal character which is reflected very strongly, rather it is the unitary character which is reflected very strongly during the emergency periods. So same has happened. Governor reports the breakdown of governance. The center is obligated under Article 355 to protect the state. This is very important. For the protection of state also, emergency has to be imposed. If there is violence and the state government is unable to stop that violence, that can be a ground to impose president rule, and it has been done earlier in Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir and other areas also. So the process of imposition, what is the process? Governors report to the president. Governor sends fortnightly report to the president about the functioning of the state government. So governor here holds two important functions. One, it is the constitutional post, it is the head of the state. Along with it, governor is also the agent of the center, or shall we say the representative of the central government in the states. Again a unitary feature. Okay, again we see the overarching power of the central government in these states. Hence we can say India is not a truly federal country. We do have several elements of federalism, but we are not a truly federal country. These provisions are very important for your prelims examination, so listen very carefully. Governor reports to the president citing governance failure. President proclamation issued. Once the president proclaims emergency, the emergency gets imposed. So the question comes, what is the role of parliament here? Does this proclamation is issued without the permission of parliament, without passing any resolution in the parliament, or this is just imposed by the president immediately? Now think about a situation, something has happened in a state, the constitutional machinery of a state breaks down. उस condition में क्या होगा? पार्लियामेंट सेशन में है या नहीं है, पार्लियामेंट में क्या डिबेट चल रहा है. To bring this issue to the parliament will take some time. Till that time, what will happen to the state? We have to understand that if there is widespread violence in that state, if the constitutional machinery has broke down and there is no government to rule, the assembly has dissolved, okay, and there is nothing to look forward to, what will happen to the state? So the constitution makes the provision that on the report of the governor, the president automatically and is obliged to impose the sorry, impose the precedent rule under article 356 without seeking for the permission of the parliament. But nothing can happen in this country until and unless there is a check and balance of different organs. Okay, hence this particular proclamation goes to the parliament and it needs to be ratified by parliament within 2 months. That simply means in the month of February, if precedent rule is imposed, so within 2 months the parliament should ratify or approve this particular proclamation. It is very important. For national emergency under 352, this is 1 month, here it is 2 months. Okay, it is so, this is initially valid for, once approval is given, it is valid for 6 months and it is extendable up to 3 years. Beyond 3 years, the precedent rule under 356 is not permissible. You see, if 1 year is passed, if 1 year is passed and for about 1 year the emergency was imposed, what will happen? That it becomes very important for the election commission and the government to conduct election and form an elected government in that particular state. But if the election commission comes up and says that the condition for election are not there, the ground conditions are not okay to conduct election, that is one reason why the precedent rule can be extended beyond 1 year. The another reason is that a national emergency has been imposed. During the time of national emergency, this precedent rule can also extend over 1 year, but not more than 3 years. Within 3 years, the government has to do something to establish a elected government in that particular state. So what happens? What is the impact here? The state executive is dismissed, okay, and the legislature is suspended. Governors administer the state under presidential authority. Simple provision. So now we are going to see the difference between the national emergency, the proclamation of emergency. The name is given here is the proclamation. Proclamation of emergency. And this is President's rule under Article 356. So what is the trigger here? What is the trigger here? Under 356, it is the governance failure, the breakdown of the constitutional machinery in the state, which is the trigger. A report is sent by the governor to the president. What is the trigger there? There are 3 triggers given: war, external aggression and armed rebellion. Earlier, this word armed rebellion was not there in the original constitution. Okay. Internal disturbance was the word written, but this internal disturbance is a very vague word. So by 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978, this ground of internal disturbance has been removed and armed rebellion has been written instead of that. So now armed rebellion inside the country, that is a very specific ground to impose the emergency. Of course, war and external aggressions are other grounds. So approval by simple majority of the parliament within 2 months when it comes to the precedent rule, special majority by parliament within 1 month. Duration 6 months, okay, and extendable up to 3 years. We have already seen under certain conditions. Now what are the conditions? If there is a national emergency and if the election commission refuses, saying that there are difficulties in conducting elections in the state. There is no time limit here. The emergency, the national emergency can be imposed for n number of years. But that is not a very good state of affair for a democratic country like India. And hence, these kind of emergencies, the use of these emergencies, the more it is, the bad it is. The less it is, the good it is. Impact on state. What is the impact on state? The executive is dismissed. Here, when we are talking about the president rule, the executives means the chief minister, the council of minister, they are dismissed. Okay, the whole administration, the whole executive power goes into the hand of the president. Under the presidential authority, governor governs the state. Legislature is also suspended. Rules are made by the parliament. Okay, here the state continues to function. It's very important distinction between these two. You must remember for your prelims examination. Fundamental right, no effect during president rule. Here, Article 19 is automatically suspended. Now, there's a tweak here. Under Article 358 and under Article 359, several distinctions are made. If the national emergency or the proclamation of emergency under Article 352 has been imposed on the basis, on the trigger point of war or external aggression, Article 19 is automatically suspended. Article 19 is suspended. But if the emergency is proclaimed on the basis of armed rebellion, then it is not automatically suspended. This is what is written in Article 358. It is very important for us to understand. Okay. Now, coming to Article 359. President has been given the power. President, here the president's power is very important. To take away citizens' right to move to the court. That means the remedies are suspended. If the president wants, during emergency, on whichever basis, it may be war, it may be external aggression, it may be armed rebellion. If the president wants, the power or the right given to the citizens to move to the court when their fundamental rights are infringed or curtailed, that right to remedy is suspended by the president by an order. Nothing happens automatically here. The president by order has to suspend the remedies to move to the court for several fundamental rights, for one fundamental right or for all the fundamental right. But such a order cannot be passed against Article 20 and 21. That simply means even during emergency, on whatever grounds, the citizens' right under Article 20 and Article 21 is intact. They are never suspended. The citizens' right to move to the court under Article 20 and 21 remains intact always. Okay, so it's important to understand. President rule in India. What are some key facts? It has been imposed since 1950, has been imposed for more than 134 times, and Manipur had seen the maximum number of times the imposition of president rule. Including this one, it becomes the 11th time. Okay, this is an important fact for you to understand. Longest duration under president rule, Jammu and Kashmir for more than 12 years, Punjab for more than 10 years because of the disturbances happening in these two states, and Pondicherry under 7+ years has seen president rule. So several court judgment for president rule, because president rule was also used as a political tool to break down the machinery of the government and to impose the president rule if the opposition party is ruling that particular state. Let's say in center, party A is in power and in a particular state party B is in power. So it becomes, you know, very easy for that central government to impose president rule on B. If it has majority in the parliament, think about what it can do. The governor of that state or of any state in India is the agent of the central government. The governor is appointed by the central government. It works on the advice of the central government. It although works on the aid and advice of the council of minister, but it cannot defy the orders of the central government. Although it is a constitutional post, but the power of its appointment, the power of the removal of the governor are in the hand of the central government. So if the central government has to use this power politically, it just has to ask governor to send a report that a constitutional machinery has broken down in the state, and the president imposes the president rule under article 356, and the constitutionally elected government is suspended, assembly can be dissolved. So it has been used as a political tool in the past, and that is the case where Supreme Court enters, because if it is 352 or 356, judicial review is allowed in both the cases. You can approach court in both the cases. Okay, so judicial review, court can strike down the misuse of article 356. Let's say the state imposes 356 today. The opposition party or that state government, the people forming that state government reaches to the Supreme Court saying that, and it's the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court when some kind of dispute is there between the central government and the state government. That is the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. If they reach the Supreme Court saying that the misuse of article 356 has been taken, there is no breakdown of constitutional machinery in the state, and upon inquiry the Supreme Court finds it to be true, it can restore, Supreme Court can restore the state government back. That is the power of judicial review under the constitution given to the Supreme Court. President cannot dissolve the assembly without parliamentary approval. So parliamentary approval is needed for dissolution of the assembly. The assembly can be suspended. Okay, after the president rule is over, the same assembly can take over, make the government again, the legislative assembly. Okay, but the dissolution of the assembly then results in election. So you should understand the difference between the word dissolution and suspension. Suspension is for a temporary period. The same assembly comes up and makes the government again. But when it comes to dissolution, dissolution simply means that next election needs to take place for forming the new legislative assembly. Okay. So dissolution can only be done after the approval of the parliament. Must be used as a last resort, not for political gains. This has been said very clearly by the courts. And states are not appendages of the center, as she emphasized on federalism. So, if you see the state government, they are constitutionally elected government with a constitutionally elected head of the state. Sorry, the head of the state is not elected but appointed by the center. Constitutionally elected head of the government, who is the chief minister. You must understand this is the parliamentary form of democracy, where the head of the state is the nominal head and the real power lies in the hand of the head of the government. In the center, that person is the prime minister. In the state, that person is the chief minister. So governor is a constitutional post. The state government has been elected by the people when they have voted. So to just impose a president rule disturbing the whole constitutional mechanism is not correct for political gains. And that is why Supreme Court has came up to speak against this a lot. Supreme Court is very vigilant when president rule is imposed in the country. It is very vocal. And if somebody approaches and the Supreme Court finds out after inquiry that the grounds were not appropriate, the imposition was illegal, the Supreme Court restores the government back. the state government backed. So thank you very much for joining me on this important issue of President's rule imposed on Manipur. We are going to come up with the next topic next time. Thank you very much.